just because I mean, you were like you said, you're part of this, and not just a big way. You're not just part of the actual mission, you're part of the transfer and how this mission is going to impact the rest of the world. And that's kind of how we connected at the NASA social. I was like, you're literally changing the world. So if you don't mind, before we get into the science, just tell us who you are, Dr. Carnell, and your
Yeah.
part in the Artemis II mission.
Absolutely. So, I'm Lisa Carnell. I'm the Director of Biological and Physical Sciences at NASA in the Science Mission Directorate, and I lead a really wide portfolio that ranges from everything we do in space and studying how microbes work in space or and how they change how you grow plants. How are we going to feed astronauts on the lunar surface or out to Mars? We have cold atom laboratory up on the International Space Station. And then, of course, we look at all of biology and how it responds, and in this case, human biology using 3D models.
Mm. Very, very cool. And so specifically, I know we talked about, or I know you're mentioning the various types of science that we want to do and are doing in space, but I know our conversation is specifically about Avatar. So could you tell us a little bit about Avatar, your part on it, and essentially how it works? And I assume you actually just got it back, so this must be a very exciting time.
Yeah,
So
we
how's
do.
analysis going?
We do, and I mean, I think I'm pinging the PI up there in Boston like regularly. So, do you have anything for me? I mean, it's really early days, but
Yeah.
it's been, and this team is just absolutely outstanding. So, Avatar stands for a virtual astronaut tissue analog response. And, from that, we were, thinking, how do we take advantage of these cutting edge 3D human models that have been developed and apply them to NASA's needs for, understanding the space environment in a different way. We've used lots of different types of organisms, rodents, and different types of species, but really sending things out into deep space. And the human aspect is fantastic because human translates to human. So it's very different when you have a different type of organism and you think, oh, well, 79% of its DNA is, homologous to a human. But, we still really grapple with how we translate that data. This is human to human. So we get that true translational benefit right away. And then on top of that, it's something that's been really kind of taking over the medical world across the world, not just within NASA or our country. These models have really been demonstrated as, we've seen data from clinical trials. It fails rapidly, like 80 to 90% of drug trials fail because they're done in animals and they don't translate to the human well. And so everyone's pivoting to these models. I don't know that they'll 100% replace other types of species, but I think they're really going to be moving to take over in a lot of different ways. And that's been one of the thrusts behind this. So these are really powerful. And for our specific avatar, we picked a bone marrow model. So what's really cool about that is that the bone marrow is like where your blood cells start inside your body. Your body is producing millions of blood cells every day, constantly. And so what we can do is those blood cells also affect your immune system. So when you're feeling tired or you're getting sick all the time, that's where it starts. And our astronauts we already see on the International Space Station have immune challenges almost right away. And so we thought this model is going to be ideal for us, A, to really look at radiation damage, because once we get into deep space, the radiation is much stronger. And then we'll be able to take a look at the immune changes and we'll be able to go look at what's happening in the astronaut. So everyone's like, this is so complicated, and it is, but it's just so beautiful because we can take a look at the what the endpoint is in the astronaut from their blood and their immune functions like T cells, B cells. And then we can go back to the bone marrow model and see where it all started and where we saw any changes in the production of those cells and where we might find the mechanisms associated with that. And then would that lead to some sort of a therapeutic for, ensuring that their immune system stays healthy? and then deep diving into what's this radiation doing? The blood forming organs are the most susceptible to radiation. And so we can really take a look at that and see how radiation is affecting them, especially in deep space. We don't have data in deep space radiation on the humans. So this is a first of its kind.
What I wanted to capture. Like this mission, we saw its effect on, the general public, but I can't imagine how this must be for you coming off of having your experiment fly and just everything going almost too perfectly according to plan from,
It was.
launch to splashdown.
Oh my goodness, what a question. I think that's probably the hardest of all because,
Yeah.
it has been this incredible whirlwind. I don't think I could have ever imagined or planned this, had I tried. It's been, just from launch day and leading up to launch. And, I was so lucky. I had my family there with me to support this. This has been years in the making. And, the launch was spectacular. I mean, I've been to many launches and this one just was it was so special in so many ways, and it brought me to tears. It just was quite overwhelming emotionally. And then, you know, very soon after we made our way to Houston for Splashdown, and
Yes.
we, were, or I'm sorry, not for Splashdown, for the lunar flyby. So I was really privileged to be able to be in the SIR room, the science evaluation room during that. So, as the crew, they were talking about all the descriptions of what they were seeing, and then hurried up and made my way to California for Splashdown. And oh
Amazing.
my gosh, waiting, like, so nervous, making, number one, the crew safety, getting them home safely, and
Yes.
then, of course, getting our Avatar payload off and seeing,
Yes.
"Can we see anything yet?"
Right.
And and then that didn't stop because then I made my way quickly over to the 41st Annual Space Symposium meeting, and so I literally just got back and I'm processing all of this, and I kind of feel like I need to sit with it because it was just such a big moment for NASA, for the world, I think. This was a near perfect mission, like you said. It was it was spectacular, and I still kind of pinch myself. I can't believe that I was part of this in such a big
Yes.
way. And so it's still it's a lot.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I love to hear that straight from your mouth.
I know, I can keep going on.
No, please, that is the whole point. So my next question, and one of the questions I had for you at the NASA Social was the Earth impact. And so you described this as a paradigm shift in studying human health beyond Earth's protective magnetosphere, right? So in this deep space radiation environment, what were, or I'm sorry, yeah, what were we missing before Avatar that we'll now be able to see from the radiation in space? And then how does this technology actually transfer to the Earth technology, or like what we can do with this technology on Earth?
And, thanks for asking that because that's really near and dear to me. When I was studying in graduate school, one of my goals was to really have an impact on, human health here on Earth. And so what I really love about what we're doing is that we're addressing a really important issue for NASA and, being able to create personalized, bone marrow chips out of each of the astronauts and send them out to the deep space environment so they're exposed to radiation, unlike anything you can do here on Earth, and the microgravity. And we can compare the results directly to them to get an understanding how an individual responds to that environment. And, people will say, well, so what does that, how's that helping us here on Earth? People are undergoing, are exposed to radiation all the time. So we've got radiotherapy, and this even can translate to folks undergoing chemotherapy. But also, think about accidents around a nuclear reactor, somebody that's healthy exposed to radiation. We can't ethically expose humans to radiation here on the ground. And so, in this capacity, we're exposing really healthy human beings to radiation environment that we just can't do on Earth. And so, we'll really get to see, do these healthy humans have a different response And that's one reason why our partners in BARDA, the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, and the NIH and CATS, the National Center for Advancing Translational Sciences, they joined this effort because they saw the incredible value that we can correlate this to healthy humans being exposed to this environment and really understand what the effects are and then translate that back to address their mission needs. So it's a really powerful study that I think, while it's a pathfinder and at first, I think it's going to open the doors for so much more.
I love it. And you gave me some specific examples when we
Yeah.
spoke in person about just like how does this look? How does this translate to the actual patient on Earth? So you mentioned the COVID treatment responses. Instead of kind of using the human being as the guinea pig, you can just use the avatar. Could you explain a little bit more about that, how that would look?
Yeah, so what I think these organ chip models, even for our astronauts across the board, are going to really lend themselves to personalized medicine. And so, what I think is we saw this so much, I know we talked about this even with COVID. They used these during COVID, by the way. There's a lung on chip model that was being used, and trying to, because they were quickly trying to evaluate different drug compounds and toxicities. Now, they weren't used in a personalized way during that time. But imagine if you could use these in a personalized way in any type of event, especially COVID, where we saw so many differences in demographics, like you were saying, with the different communities, with younger, older. And so if we were able to make a tissue chip or an organ chip out of you, make your own lung and see how you responded to it, then we could prescribe the right medicine that's going to work on you. These chips, which is incredible, is that they really, I mean, I don't want to say they're so fast, but they don't take, years to develop like a regular human organ. You can develop these in the lab and you can, prepare them from just a simple blood draw, which, nobody really, we don't have to go and take a piece of your lung or even that with the crew. We didn't take a bone marrow extraction. We were able to get the stem cells from their blood to actually generate these types of models. So non-invasive. And, I could see eventually, Naya, I could see even one day where you go into your doctor's office with some sort of a disease and they take a blood draw and create your organ chips from you, depending what that is. And they start to test the right therapy for you, because I think that's where medicine has been really challenged in that, everybody's treated the same way and we're not the same. So I'm really excited about what the future holds here for medicine and really applying these organ chip models.
Amazing. And that was the thing that stuck out to me the most is like you said, the personalized representative medicine, where we have these demographics and communities that are so historically understudied in healthcare and medicine. And this kind of one size fits all approach has been applied to people where it's not working. And I just really saw the path for that. And so that is what I mean. And I thank you for your work. When I say that you're changing the world, like that's the part that connects with me the most, that the people who have been, the least studied and the least I'll say considered in healthcare, and that goes for women specifically. Um, it's so I just had to give you your kudos there. And so my second to last question is kind of looking forward. So NASA plans to send tissue chips to the moon on future Artemis missions. So what's the arc from Avatar on Artemis 2 to chips on the lunar surface and beyond that, say to Mars?
We are working on all of the above. So, as we were just talking about personalized medicine, for here on Earth, our goal eventually would be to use these types of model systems, organ chips, to, send them out ahead of time and understand, if I know who the crew is for, say, Artemis 4 going forward, that's going to be boots on the moon, or 5 and beyond, I could send their avatars ahead of time and understand what's going to happen, whether it's the radiation environment, immune function, whatever it could be, and prescribe a specific medical kit that will ensure that they stay healthy. And so I think that's That's incredible. So we plan to put these on every Artemis mission possible. And then, of course, we're also looking at not just Artemis, but we're looking at our commercial lunar payload services. And then also we have an eye on Mars in the future.
There you go. Amazing. And so as we close, I would just love to know, what is it that you want the public to understand about this research and why it matters? And where can people follow the results as the analysis begins and becomes to be published?
Oh, goodness, that's a loaded one. What I think that the most important thing that I wanted, I didn't do this, with any like, um, with any notion of, like, oh, this was just an attention getter. This was really, the science was key here and really trying to understand what the effect would be in the deep space environment and how do we understand that better to send our astronauts safely to the lunar environment for long duration and then out to Mars. And I have to say that I think the greatest understanding I'd like the public to take away is that this science is much bigger than NASA. This is for everyone. And that's I think one of the proudest parts of it for me is that it has that, as you said, that translational benefit back to, some underserved populations that, or rare diseases, or, you never know, like so many different disparities that are not being addressed. And this has the opportunity to address so much of that and really start to kind of close those gaps that exist. So that's my big takeaway. And I think one, NASA, we have our mission. We all, everybody who you work for, you have your mission, but being able to address your mission and help enable other missions is, incredibly powerful for science. So that would be a big takeaway.
Beautiful. I completely agree. I think when I drive into Glen every day, we see research and technology for the benefit of all. And that is exactly what connects my heart so much to the research that you're doing, is that it's a clear and tangible example of research and technology for the benefit of all. And so as the analysis gets done, where can we find or how can we follow Avatar? It's very clear, it's just starting really.
Yeah, I know, right? You feel like, oh, we launched, we
Right.
landed, and it's all, oh no, it's like you said, we're really just getting started. That was like the first baby step, right? I would say you can follow on at NASA Science. So we will be posting all of our results, pictures, and everything going on with Avatar on that site.
Excellent. Well, thank you so, so much for your time and your expertise, Dr. Lisa Carnell. It was truly a pleasure. Now go
And
ahead
thank
and
you.